Well, hello, that's me again. Today is January the 20th. It's Saturday. Happy, whatever the qualities of this weekend for all of you. And let's start with a little bit review of the news, such as, for example, armed forces of Ukraine, obviously from the support of their curators from London and Washington, struck the very important strategic target in Lugansk, which is the kindergarten. And this is the modus operandi of them since the start of the special military operation. And this is pretty much what, by all, objective criteria, London is kind of, lapdog here, but primarily, all kinds of people like French and, of course, Washington provide, so to speak, targeting, despite the fact that they deny that they don't. Well, if you want to know what is going on, you can always look at Gaza, where Israeli Defense Force flattens pretty much anything which is civilian. So that's the news, but here is a very important piece of news, which is, how to put it politely, schizophrenia. Actually, it's the fact that you have two personalities, split personalities. Some people say it could be more, 3. I have 4, but some say that even 7 is possible. I don't know. I didn't get there yet. So, however, here is the issue. We have this hysterical dude, he is French defense minister, Mr. Lecornu, and he is, I don't know what kind of defense minister. He was a lieutenant in gendarmerie, so basically he's a police officer, but at least he's somebody who knows what discipline is, or we assume so, got to the point of that he is defense minister. He's a very rude guy, and he sounds a little bit hysterical, since yesterday they suddenly started to deny in France that they could not ban citizens from going to fight in Ukraine. And the Minister of the Armed Forces of the Republic, Sébastien Lecornu, clarified that the ban cannot be imposed if citizens are not career military. And here comes this whole issue. You know that Russia confirmed, and actually even people in Kiev sort of confirmed it, that they struck the Kharkov, well, it's kind of like hotel, if you wish, a building, where there were more than 60 French volunteers, if you wish. So 60 of them, at least 60 of them have been killed, others, there were a bunch of wounded. And here what France, the minister of the Sébastien Lecornu, and they reacted in Paris very hysterically, said that France as a democratic country cannot prohibit its citizens. So sure, yeah, of course, yeah, if they are, volunteers, what can you do? Although you have the sort of, how to put it politely, the law, if you wish, so which actually bans this without the explicit permission of the French government, but who cares? So, and he talked about, that's how he explains it. There are Frenchmen, civilians, who went to fight in Ukrainian uniforms, but we as a democratic country, I already repeated it, so the citizens are not career military personnel and do not have ties to French military institutions. Ministry of Defense, however, in Russian Federation about the destruction of several dozen French mercenaries in Kharkov, he considered the statement to be ambiguous. According to Lecornu, it is designed to create the impression that the French military is participating in hostilities on the side of Kiev in Ukraine and promotes the narrative of complicity of Paris in the conflict. Okay, well, I have news for Mr. Lecornu and why generally French media, which are basically all lying sacks of what substance, they react this way for a simple reason: because the French ambassador in Moscow has been called to the Russian foreign ministry, and that fact is very important. The reason it is important is not just because Russian side will just express the protest or what have you. No, this is not the case. It is he was called to the foreign ministry, where he will be presented with the evidence, which will be very solid, of the, guess what, cadre French military people and intelligence personnel being present on the ground in Kharkov. But That is why this hysteria. Russians know there were French, British, some volunteers. But Russians also know who those people are from the American, British, French, Polish, and other side. So that's why, for example, Paris previously refused to recognize the deaths of citizens of the Republic in Kharkov, a typical French approach in response to a question from TASS during a briefing. So French ministry claimed that the country has no mercenaries in Ukraine or anywhere else. So this is a complete denial, and this is parading official Paris as a bunch of the clowns, which they are. And here is again, read this phrase. He considered the statement to be ambiguous. According to Le Cornu, it is designed to create the impression that the French military is participating in hostilities on the side of Kiev in Ukraine. Sure, they are not participating, but this guy is participating, and France as a country is participating. So, as you can see yourself, and this was done actually 3 days ago, 2 days before those mercenaries, quote unquote, have been wiped out. And West cannot let Russia win. Mr. Macron, the president of France, hello, says Paris will send Kiev 40 Scalp missiles and hundreds of bombs as Ukraine continues to plead for more aid, the French president has said. So, as you can see yourself, France is not the party to this conflict, right? I'm being sarcastic, of course. So, French President Emmanuel Macron has announced new deliveries of long-range missiles and bombs to Kiev and blah, 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 blah. France cannot allow anything. It cannot defend itself. Forget about, just influence the outcome of war with Russia. But speaking at the press conference, he stated at Élysée Palace in Paris on Tuesday. So there you go. This is how France is not participating and is not the party to the conflict. And the hysteria is not only that, of course, French have been, basically paraded as the clowns, which I'm talking about official France, obviously not French people as a whole, but have been paraded as clowns. And the fact is that many people still do not understand that it was a very clear message on Russians. And it was messaged not only to France, it was messaged to the United States, it was messaged to London, to Germany, that we know where you are, we know who you are, and this time, well, as I posted in my blog yesterday, no more Mr. Nice Guy with Alice Cooper's song. So there you go. They will be hunted and they will be killed now deliberately. So there you go. It's a very easy way for Russia to basically, just convince those creeps who, with the globalist inclinations that, you don't want to fight Russia. And this is a very interesting fact because obviously Pepe Escobar, my good friend, he wrote on the Emmanuel Todd's book, The Death of the West, a wonderful review. And while he was writing, this wonderful review, he pointed out to one of the key points out of 12, I believe, where Emmanuel Todd explains why West is done. And he says, Emmanuel Todd asks, the question, how did Russia and Belarus, who produce 3.3% of the world's GDP, can outproduce combined NATO, US included, in everything pretty much? Well, I explained it to you, and I can only quote Mr. Michael Hudson, incomparable Mr. Michael Hudson, that what they teach in economics in American and London institutions is fraud. It's not economics. And that's what I'm trying to convey for many years. Well, now Mr. Emmanuel Todd kind of gets the idea because, as I already stated, Russian economy dwarfs that of Germany, let alone the squeaks like France, let alone UK. So there you go. Take away some, narrow, so to speak, industries from the, let's say, France, such as Airbus, and a little bit of the nuclear energy, sector, and you suddenly kind of get, this weave of the second, if not third world. This is what it is. So, and these are the news. And fact is, to conclude the review of this news is, of course, none other than Mr. Deripaska. It's one of the former oligarchs. He used to own Rusal, the major aluminum production company in Russia. He is now, well, let me put it this way. He was told how to behave, which is good. And he says that, oh, European Union looks particularly sad amid the ongoing global economic shutdown. Well, hello, Mr. Deripaska, where have you been sleeping, or rather what stone you have been sleeping under? Because everybody knows what is happening, I mean, except for, of course, European elites. And he talks about basically, and this is the guy who, believe me, he is no, your outright supporter of Mr. Putin, or, he even tried to steal the pen by Mr. Putin in 2007, so that Mr. Putin demanded this pen back from him. So this is the kind of guy. However, you're going to be surprised. He has this actually PhD in engineering science. He is not dumb. So, and here it is. Meanwhile, Europe has neither access to large untapped market, nor the necessary technologies or the money for these innovations and structural changes he is talking about. And for example, they say that this transition to the completely suicidal green agenda and low carbon emission thing will require 5.2 trillion, and that will be the most expensive suicide in the history of the humanity. When Mr. Deripaska gets it here, and here what he says. Meanwhile, in the Hill reports, it's 3 days ago that, basically it explains everything about the so-called aid to Ukraine. So it's that in an election year, and while former President Trump is outpacing the incumbent in recent polls, it's unlikely that an accord will suddenly materialize that would satisfy politically skewed parties in terms of providing aid to Ukraine. But the question here is that it doesn't really matter. Even if they approve those $60 billion, they will change absolutely nothing militarily. And you can go and look it up practically every single day. We have the reports of Russians advancing and killing more and more whatever is left of our Ukrainian armed forces. And now you have actually whole battalions of women there, including the whole companies dedicated for the control of Ukrainian drones, which still going to be shut down primarily. And those women, they're not going to live for a long time. This is the sad reality of it, but it is what it is. That's the real war. And so now we have to go to the thing which I was planning to do for a while, but I need to go and review it again. And again, I will be doing this of the situation with, while we'll talk about the basically suicide of Europe, economic suicide and homicide, if you wish, combined thing. Economically, the situation in the United States is not good either. And as I wrote 5 years ago, basically, in my book, The Real Revolution in Military Affairs, that actually warfare is the geopolitical tool of the first order. Only through war you can realize yourself as the economic power. It is sad reality, but it is what it is. And obviously, it all comes together with the issue of the monetarism and globalism, neoliberalism, which set in the combined West and which killed it. It's pretty much fait accompli now. We're just basically seeing the last convulsions of the patient, if you wish, before West becomes poor, sometimes dirt poor, and basically lowers itself to the, at best, second world states. And in United States, and especially when you look attentively at the issue of the warfare and military, technological, and industrial expertise, we have this. Let's refresh our memory. Here is the United States Department of State, which describes the Missile Technology Control Regime, MTCR. It's an old thing. It was basically not negotiated, even settled in the 1987 by the G7 industrialized countries, and eventually Soviet Union kind of joined it, then Russia. And the Missile Technology Control Regime is an informal, read this, informal political understanding among states that seek to limit the proliferation of missiles and missile technology. Currently, as you can see yourself, there are 35 member countries, so it just, you can see yourself the list. It's Portugal, Russian Federation, United Kingdom, United States, and Italy, and what have you. And then we can go and take a look at other situations and items which are described in this MTCR. And it is no, MTCR is not a treaty and does not impose any legally binding obligations on partners members. Rather, it is an informal political understanding among states that seek to limit the proliferation. And when you look at this kind of, what do they limit to? At the item 7.7, what are the main objectives of this, regime, if you wish? Here it is. The regime places particular focus on rockets and unmanned aerial vehicles capable of delivering a payload of at least 500 kg to a range of at least 300 kg on equipment, software, and technology for such systems. And basically MTCR Annex, it explains to you what is in what, pretty much every single item of the technology of the, for example, cruise missiles is involved. And here we come to the issue which is very important, understanding what is going on with the, for example, navies, and especially NATO navies in Mediterranean, and especially with regards to this funny little thingy called the Prosperity Guardian operation. So there will be a lot of movement around it, and of course Houthis attack them with primarily older versions, subsonic, not very accurate or very electronic warfare resistant missiles and drones, which will not harm well-protected military ship, obviously a naval ship, but obviously they do have a major impact on the shipping. And today I believe Houthis already stated that they will not harm Russian or Chinese ships, or vessels rather. So, but of course we have the US Navy there, and here is the issue. And especially when you look at this MTSR, CR, whatever the name of it. So there are, so to speak, news. And while Newsweek is obviously the neocon central, you cannot really discard it that it is a complete baloney. They actually, talking about it a few days ago, they do have, how to put it they have some foundations to explain it this way. For example, the Lebanese Hezbollah militia is reportedly in possession of Russian-made anti-ship missiles after the group's leader Hassan Nasrallah threatened something in store for the US vessels operating in the Middle East region. Reuters reported on Wednesday, citing two anonymous Lebanese sources, that the Iranian-aligned militia group has added P-800 Onyx, which in its expert form is known as Yahan, to its formidable missile arsenal. And actually, Peskov, as usual, he said, hey, you know what, we don't know anything about it, but of course, we know that there is a Yahan in Syria. It was sold to Syria, and Syria has actually, pardon me, it has the number of the Bastion launch systems. Here's your Yahan. This is Yahan, which is of course the export version of the extremely scary missiles, which is called Onyx, P-800 Onyx. In accordance to this regime of the limiting technology, Russians sold it some years ago to Syria, which is of course in very close contact with Hezbollah. Russia sold some Bastion systems, and with Yahan, which is limited by 300 kilometers. It is a fully supersonic, all-flight supersonic missile, which accelerates to Mach 2.6 if it needs to, but usually it flies like, you know, if it's a high high flight profile. It might fly Mach 2 and then accelerate to Mach 2.6, and it's just officially basically what is declared. If you'll take a look at it, that the question now is, of course, once the TCR have been basically broken by the United States, no less, and I will explain you why later, is the fact that, well, is it 300-kilometer version which Syria has, or is it the now original Russian version, which even the previous generation of these missiles could fly at, if it launched from the ship or land, it's around 660 kilometers plus. If it is launched from the air, it flies in the excess of the 800 kilometers. Because once you begin to consider this, then suddenly things change tactically and operationally. And the question is now that after basically the United States, well, just quit all pretty much treaties on the arms control, why should Russia basically continue to observe this thing? No, of course not. So will Syria transfer? And we assume that it has the 800-kilometer range Onyx. Will it transfer something to Hezbollah? I don't know. Don't ask me. Let CIA deal with this, and Russians are keeping mum, and they say nothing. Now, of course, you have now yesterday's statement of both Mr. Shoigu, Minister of Defense, and the Minister of Defense of Iran, that Russia and Iran are about to go into the defensive pact, guys. And that means what? Iran will be receiving whatever it needs. And we are talking about not export versions. We are talking about some things which can reach way far into the, not just Strait of Hormuz, but beyond into the Indian Ocean. And this is horrifying perspective. These are not subsonic missiles, guys. These are high supersonic. And if you look attentively at actually the other Russian products, such as 3M54 caliber, and again, this you can see here, it's export version. And its export version, of course, as again, was 300-kilometer range. In reality, this thing flies up to 700 kilometers, and while being subsonic on its flight path for the most part, once it reaches the terminal, it accelerates to almost Mach 3 and begins to maneuver absolutely violently. Good luck trying to shoot down this thing, or for that matter, the salvo of those things. And as I already presented it many times, how the salvos are constructed and how they calculate it in terms of the required force, in our particular case, number of the required missiles. Of course, it depends also on the type of the targeting they receive, how accurate targeting it is. Although modern missiles with their active radar heads, they really do not need that accurate targeting. So once you have this, wow, you have a problem for any kind of the Navy. And now the question is, will Houthis receive something, and is Iran having already those things delivered? I'm pretty sure it is. And then, of course, when Mr. Nasrallah talks about that there is a surprise for those navies and assets, well, yeah, we're talking about the fact that Hezbollah already had some in the possession, if you wish, older versions of and expert versions of Onyx, with its major range, which covers pretty much most part of the Eastern Mediterranean. And of course, how do they get their targeting? Well, let me put it this way. Who knows? Wink, wink. So, and here's the question. This also goes back to all those French, volunteers, so to speak, which are not French cadre officers. Wink, wink again. So, and then when you look at this, then suddenly you begin to understand actually why they worry in the combined West, because, and here is the, shocking revelation, if you wish, because United States, for example, and all other parts of the NATO, they don't have modern anti-shipping missiles. No, they do have anti-shipping missiles, but most of them are subsonic. And when you look attentively at the development of the missile program in the United States, let me put it this way. It is a complete failure. And to demonstrate to you, for example, Russians yesterday, just for the heck of it, it's now fun and games, they shot older P-35 missiles at some, and these are from 60s, guys. Obviously, the ones which have been launched there were primarily from 80s. They're still analog basically signal processing there, but still, hey, guess what? They basically struck their two air defense sites near Odessa in Ukraine. Of course, there will be people who will say, oh yeah, see, Russians kind of run out of missiles. No. Russia outproduces West several times over in combined with the production of the modern anti-shipping and land attack missiles. But when you look attentively, actually what is happening with the combined West, look where we have now, we're standing right now. In 2017, as you can see yourself, United States decided that it needs a Tomahawk cruise missile which will hit moving target. And so once the deal is complete, they're talking about Raytheon will start work to craft and install a sensor to convert a yet to be determined number of Block 4 TLAMPS Tomahawk land attack missiles into what they call now maritime strike Tomahawk variant. And guess what? By the way, this if you look attentively at this approach, there is something in this photo, which actually from the video, which is very peculiar. I'm not going to be discussing it right now, but the question is that United States still continues falling behind in the modern anti-shipping technology. I'm not talking about hypersonics. United States has nothing comparable at all. And here it lags not only by generation, probably by 2 generations now. And the only thing which looks modern, they have this, which is the kind of variance of JASSM, but this one is the strike missile, as they call it, with the range of about 300, maybe 400 kilometers. And so if that is not enough, we have obviously this thing. They still dream about what is the maritime strike Tomahawk cruise missile. This is very fresh, December 15, 2023. And they still are basically converting those Tomahawk missiles, which are subsonic, very slow. They are not sea skimmers. They do not fly that low. For example, like some of Russian X-35, which is also subsonic, is a classic sea skimmer, flies at the high elevation of 5 meters over the surface, which makes it very difficult to detect. Tomahawks do not fly like that. They fly on the higher trajectory, and they are subsonic. They are not that difficult targets for the modern air defense complexes. And the question here is that, well, the only thing United States has here is, of course, a relatively large number of those, Block 4 and Block 5, which they want to convert, and they cannot still come up with the normal goddamn title for anything. Instead of calling it Tomahawk anti-shipping missile, they call it Tomahawk's maritime strike missile. I mean, who are those people who invent these stupid titles of the weapon systems and operations in the United States? I don't know, but here it is. So you have the anti-shipping Tomahawk, which is understandable. There is nothing wrong per se in trying to convert some of those missiles, but it also exhibits the situation with the fact that apart from subsonic Harpoon, which flies at about 500 kilometers, the latest version, they have nothing. They really have nothing. So they have now this 1,500 kilometer range Tomahawks, which are Block 4, to develop an anti-ship capability. The upgrades would develop the Block 4 TLAM into the MST, which is Maritime Strike variant, to aspirational reach initial operation IOC in 2022. It was written in 2023, so I don't know if it's in IOC initial operation capability, but who knows. And here they talk about that They want to extend those stock of the old missiles, extending its service life by 15 years and resulting in the new Tomahawk Block 5 series. The Block 5, a modernized version with upgraded navigation and communication. The Block 5A, which has the ability to strike moving target, the MST variant. So it's like on and on and on. And they continue together with the Norwegian Kronberg colleagues and cooperators, so to speak, who produce a Naval strike missile, long-range missiles, and what have you. It's same old. Yeah, they call it that they, oh yeah, it's better, suited to protect itself from the electronic warfare, and on and on and on. They are subsonic. Compare this to the Mach 10 plus Zircon, which is already in the serial production and the front line deployed. Where do we go from here? It's just same old, and you cannot change it. The only thing you, of course, if you throw, huge number of them at some target, obviously you can oversaturate the air defense, but primarily you'll have to really struggle and to launch many of them to have any effect on the battlefield. So you still can break through, you still can provide the leaker. And when you go to it, and you know what, it's becoming absolutely ridiculous. So, and here we have this situation which kind of sums it up. Look at this. This is 19th of January, yesterday. U.S. nuclear missile upgrade in jeopardy, media. And Pentagon program to replace 1970s era Minuteman missiles is estimated to be running at least 37 over budget. Well, hello, welcome to the reality of American military-industrial complex. It is always cost overruns. But Assistant U.S. Air Force Secretary for Acquisition Andrew Hunter told Bloomberg that the price increase reflects all components of the $96 billion program. And it's not the fault of the contractor, claiming the initial cost estimate had simply failed to capture the massive size and scope of the launch facilities and launch control construction effort, which is correct. Ballistic missiles in and of itself is not enough. You have to have a very complex complex which services it. Well, and he says the funny thing about once in a century project is that there is a lot of that was not appreciated. It was like we were doing it for the first time. Well, welcome to the real world, and that actually exposes a huge problem with the American missilery. And the fact is, when they say once in the century, look at what Russians did with the with the ballistic missiles. Newest ballistic missiles, intercontinental ballistic missiles. If you take a look at the Sarmat, my gosh, you have the other modifications of YARS, and this is already 2 in terms of the ground-based intercontinental ballistic missiles just in the first quarter of this century. So yeah, there is something going on. There are basically supply and technological chains which have been broken, and that is why they run into those horrendous cost overruns. And now there is no guarantee that they will be on time. In fact, actually there is a guarantee, 99.99%, that they will fail to meet any deadlines, and you will have this new missile who knows when. By that time, I don't know what Russians will be deploying. But that tells you exactly about the whole problem with the U.S. military-industrial complex, and European too. And that's the issue which I'm constantly stating and trying to basically push. United States lost the arms race. And this is what I wanted to tell you this weekend. So, and as always, I'm not going to bother you anymore with the technical details. Those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel, and please support me, those who can afford, on Patreon, or buy me a coffee too. That will allow me to continue to do what I'm doing. So, have a nice weekend, guys, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.